Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Funnel Trade. Let's talk about this ridiculous one ring that's going to come out in the Lord of the Rings collector boxes. Yes, we have some bros on TikTok who are saying they'll pay $100,000 or $150,000 or whatever. The first thing to realize is a bro on TikTok is not a legally binding contract with specific and enforceable performance. So just because somebody puts a video up there and says, oh, I'll pay $150,000 doesn't mean anyone's actually going to get it. And it's important to state that explicitly, because when we talk about building models for trying to quantify what may happen in the future and trying to quantify uncertainties about those future possible events, the fact that you may not even be able to get that kind of money for the card for whoever pulls it, if it's eventually pulled, is one bit of uncertainty that needs to be accounted for. So just to kind of get that out of the way. But you know what? We're going to go even better than that. We are just going to go absolutely stupid for this analysis. And we are going to say, man, that ring, $1 million. So many zeros. Yeah, $1 million. And somehow, let's say one of the Paul brothers, which is the one who has the PSA 10 Pikachu Illustrator. Like, let's say that one. You know, he puts the money in escrow with somebody and says, this is the money for the 101 ring, and it's $1 million. So you know it's a real way to get it, okay? Or at least we have a little more certainty, because, you know, it's not like those guys are known to scam or anything. But let's say $1 million. Okay, how many of these collector boxes are they printing? Recent standard sets have been on the order of 250,000 to 300,000. You know, from the ones where they'll give us vague ideas like, you'll get a Lost Legends card in, what was it, like 3% of packs or something like that, and you could back out the numbers based on estimates of the number of boxes of Legends they opened. And the same with Brothers War for serialized cards. We knew exactly how many serialized cards there were, and we had a vague idea from WotC of about the percent chance of any given collector booster pack having one, and we could back out numbers around here. So we'll just take these two numbers. Now, what's the EV of the One Ring? What's the contribution of EV from the One Ring to a Lord of the Rings collector box? Based on this, you just do the division. Yeah, it's about $3.33 to $4. Okay. That's $4, not $400. There's a decimal point there. It's important. $4. Okay. I stood up in front of this whiteboard just about a year ago, and I warned people that the Lost Legends cards in Dominaria United collector boxes only added a bit over $5 to the EV of the box, and at the time the market was in the 260s or so for those boxes. They would eventually go all the way up to 280 to 290 range on pre-orders. People were saying, it'll release and they'll fly over $300 because the Lost Legends are so valuable. And I stood here and I warned people. I said, the Lost Legends are only worth about $5 to one of those boxes. And the rest of what you pay for the box is going to have to come from the rest of the cards inside there. You need to be able to justify that. And it's the same thing here. When you talk about what price you're going to pay for the Lord of the Rings collector boxes, whatever price that is, you only get to subtract about $4. And that's assuming this preposterous price, which is nearly 10 times what even the TikTok bros are saying they'll pay for the card. Okay? $4. So when you go to pre-order or eventually order a box of this, and you're thinking about this in terms of financial value, say you can buy them for $350, I don't know. Subtract $4, and you have to say to yourself, do the rest of the cards in the box, does the EV of those cards justify $346? And maybe to you it does. And that's always the risk-adjusted value that we talk about, that I can't answer that question for you. So keep that in mind. The contribution of the 101 ring to these boxes is even less than the Lost Legends cards contributed to the Dominaria United collector boxes. So don't go crazy thinking that the ring is adding a ton of value to these boxes. And again, this assumes $1 million, and it assumes 250 to 300K boxes. If I'm WotC and this is the upper end of what I've recently printed for standard sets, I'm going to print 320,000, 330 maybe. And who knows, they may have flown way past that. Probably not, since they're essentially re-releasing these boxes later this year as the Lord of the Rings collector box special edition with some different artworks. But I mean, at least it has like Tim and Greg Hildebrandt artwork, but it's really old Tim and Greg Hildebrandt artwork because one of those brothers has been dead for over a decade now. But it's just basically additional artwork, but it won't have the 101 ring in it. WotC has said it won't. But maybe that would have kind of mitigated how many they'll print of this first collector box of Lord of the Rings. But even then, we have this that's 10 times as high, so this number will only shrink. Just keep that in mind. Okay, second thing. When it is pulled, what will the pooling of the card, if it is pooled and revealed, what will the pooling of the card do to the value of the remaining collector boxes in the market? And really this comes out as a function of how many days post-release are we when we see that it has been pooled. And so this is going to be, we'll call this loss of collector box value. Okay, how much value do we expect the boxes to lose? It's going to look like that. If it's pulled on day one, or God forbid, like before release day, you know, if like Bad Boy gets a box early and, you know, he opens it up and I hope it happens and he pulls it and like it'll just wreck the market. And don't underestimate how emotional people are going to be. The lottery system in the US is a multi-billion, trillion-dollar business because people are so bad at math. People want the dream of hitting the jackpot. And those kind of people are going to be here for this kind of nonsense, for some TikTok bro to offer $150,000 for the card, for somebody to think, hey, it could be my lucky day. I'll draw the 101 ring and I'll get $100,000 for it. So there will be people who are absolutely overwhelmed with emotion in this market who will, once it is drawn, lose interest and the boxes could crash. Now, how far will they crash? I think they're good boxes. I think most people will probably agree that these are going to perform above average against other premium Magic releases. And so, on the long term, that is. And so, you know, don't expect that with a wholesale price of $288, somehow these boxes are going to drop to $250, even if Bad Boy pulls the ring 3 days before the release date. Even then, it's not going to crash below wholesale. I doubt without a bonus box and without some other extreme events in the market that we will really have much of an opportunity to buy these below wholesale. And remember, a bonus box sale just means TCG player is paying part of the cost for your product. They're subsidizing your purchase. So it's not even organically that low in the market. It's because someone else is coming in and saying, I will push some dollars to that seller in order to get him to release the product to the buyer. So importantly, when do we see this kind of drop where the effect of finding the ring is very small? That's an interesting question. I think this is something about, we'll call it R plus 6 weeks. What happens 6 weeks after Lord of the Rings is released? Commander Masters is released. All the attention will go to that. And if you think about last summer with Baldur's Gate, how much it whiffed, how much the market rejected it nearly instantly. Some could argue even before it was released, the market rejected it. And then Double Masters 2022 came 6 weeks later. This year, we have that Commander Master release coming 6 weeks after Lord of the Rings. And I think you are going to see somewhat of a similar type of outcome. Now, people had more money saved up last year ready to put into Double Masters 2022 when it eventually arrived because they were disappointed by New Capenna. They were disappointed by Baldur's Gate. So they had more money. But what we saw even then was over the next 6, 7, 8 months, the price of those Double Master 2022 collector boxes melted down and melted down and melted down and lost $80, $90, almost $100 from their release day price. I'd have to go back and look at exact numbers, but I think release day price was something like $270 or $280 was the average sale on TCG Player on release day. And then 6 or 7 months later, they bottomed somewhere around $215. I think you can still get them around $215, $220 today. So if you put Lord of the Rings collector boxes in place of those Double Masters 2022 boxes, and then they're being followed by Commander Masters 6 weeks later, the attention will move on. The money will move on. The emotion will move on. And if the ring is then found somewhere along that timeline out there, I think it'll have virtually no impact. Most people will simply be pricing the boxes on the underlying cards on a slight premium for it being Lord of the Rings and a slight premium for it, I feel, potentially performing better on average in the long run than a normal premium Magic set. So, next up, keep in mind that the card being unfound, found and lost, found and not recognized, someone could find the card and just not even know, oh, it's a one-on-one serialized, I don't even know what that means. Or found and not revealed. All four of those cases are the same in the market's eyes because the market can't see the difference. So when you're sitting around late at night and you're coming up with a conspiracy theory for, why it's not there or why, WotC has it at their headquarters or whatever insane ideas you're coming up with, just keep in mind those four scenarios are the same in the market's eyes. The market has no way to distinguish them. And I'll tell you, if I drew the card, there's no way I'd reveal that I drew it. I'd call my lawyer and I'd say, hey, I just drew this card that some TikTok bro is offering $150,000 for. Let's hand walk it to PSA, get it authenticated and slabbed, and then we'll contact the TikTok bro and the lawyer can tell him, come into the office with a certified check and we'll trade the card for the check. And I would never reveal who it was that had bought it or drawn it. So, found and not revealed is a very possible outcome. It could go to a private buyer who never wants to reveal that they have the card. And that happens a lot with really, really high dollar sports cards. Sometimes they are bought and nobody ever finds out who bought them. Okay, and last thing, that takes me into a discussion of sports cards. There's a guy on YouTube named Chris Sewell. He is a professional sports card dealer, and I'm not into sports. Most sports are insanely boring and just awful to try and watch. But he does sports cards, and I suggest you start watching him. Go subscribe to his channel, Chris Sewell. It's like Sewell. And he has the right kind of unemotional and analytical view on investing and collecting and dealing cards. You can learn a lot from him. But one thing that I've realized a lot from watching a lot of his videos on values of sports cards is there are some very, very, very rare and unique sports cards out there. And they would surprise you with how little they sell for, relatively. You have things that are like high-grade versions of, a 52 Mickey Mantle. And high-grade versions of that are very rare because the card was printed in 1952. People didn't take care of cards like they do now. Like, you didn't have penny sleeves floating around everywhere for people to put cards into and protect them for the next 80 years to get them to today. So even high-grade examples of that kind of stuff, 84 Jordan rookies and, just other great cards, they don't often go for $150,000. And I know this is kind of a weird, first-time thing for Magic, and I know there's a lot of, influencer idiots who have more money than sense, and they could just throw $100,000 at this card. They don't really care. I think in the long run, we will be surprised at how little this card sells for if it sells multiple times over the next decade. I think we will be surprised at how little it goes for compared to the kind of numbers we throw around today of $100,000 or $150,000 for the card. And keep in mind, the most expensive Magic card to ever sell, I think there's a rumored sale that there was a PSA 10 Alpha Black Lotus and maybe it was autographed or something. It's a rumor of a sale that it was $250,000. And you're telling me a one ring printed in 2023 is anywhere close to that value? I don't know. I don't have high hope for the value of this card on the long timeline. On the short timeline, emotions are high and, it's in the news cycle and it's the hot thing on social media, yeah, maybe it could go for a crazy price right now. But if it were to then sell again within the next 10 years, I would expect it to sell for considerably less. So let me know what you think, guys. I'm just trying to set expectations here. And I look back on my video of doing the whiteboard for Dominaria United with the Lost Legends, and that is the video on the channel thus far that I am the most proud of because I absolutely called it. I mean, there was enough data existing to figure out what the EV of the Lost Legends cards was. I laid it out. I was exactly right. And the price crashed 50% in the months after release because the Lost Legends were not valuable and the underlying set was just a standard set. And so, I want to set expectations on the 101 ring that even if we take stupidly high overestimate of what it could sell for, and we take moderately reasonable but potentially low estimate for the number of collector boxes that will be printed, we still come up with wild numbers. Wild low numbers for the amount of EV added to the Lord of the Ring collector boxes from potentially the 101 ring being there. And even if people say, hey, but what about 10 months from now? We have to make an assumption on how many boxes still exist sealed in the market. And, this number goes down to what? You think there will be 50,000 left. I think there will be more than that. But let's say there's only 50,000 left and, this is a real number. Well, okay, then the contribution from the ring is what? $5? That's not right. $50? $20? I can't do math live. $20? Who cares? $20 to each box. 6 months from now, the organic price of the cards in the box, maybe that. It's unlikely because tons of them will have been opened and these set boxes and draft boxes and bundles and everything else will have flooded the market with cards from the set, pushing down the single prices. But even in those kind of scenarios where we try to say on the medium timeline with boxes being attrited in the market, what does this go to? $20. Is $20 worth FOMOing over? No. And the nice thing is, you're not going to draw the 101 ring. And it's kind of fun that I can say that with surety because I know I can only be wrong for one of you at worst. So yeah, that's what I've got to say about this. I just don't think it's worth FOMOing over. I think when we get out here to 6 weeks and beyond, Commander Masters is going to take people's attention away. It's going to take the money away. The emotion will be gone. A lot of this stuff will be dissipated. I think there will be great opportunities to buy these collector boxes at very good prices. Maybe they never come down below $340, $350. Who knows? But maybe 8, 10 months from now, just like Double Masters 2022 collector boxes did, maybe they come down $80, $90 and you pick them up for $300. It's possible. It's not a sure thing that these are just going to the moon and they'll never come back. They will always have more stiff competition in the future from other Magic products, and especially with Commander Masters coming on stage right after this. So, I laid out a lot of this information, this analysis to my patrons in mid-May in the May newsletter. Join my Patreon. You get real-time buy notices. Every time I buy something, you get the monthly newsletter, and you can talk to me anytime you want. So let me know what you think, guys. Anything you think I've gotten horribly wrong here. I think it's mostly just simple division, but it's important to lay it out logically and say, hey, the emotional overreaction is probably not warranted. Be ready for the Timmies and the lottery wannabe winners in the market to do stupid things. And if the ring is found early on, I think the earlier it's found, the more that price will crash. And if we make it out a couple weeks, 4, 5, and even 6 weeks, and then it's found at R plus 8 weeks, I don't think the market will really care anymore because the price of the boxes will have actually found their water level. The market will have weighed them instead of voting on them. And the reaction to finding the ring will be very muted. So let me know what you think, guys. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Join me on Final Trade. Join the Patreon.